Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, wherever you are in the world. And thanks for joining us for this light thinking event, Homo Faber, the need for beauty. We have a very interesting afternoon for you today. We have a wonderful speaker, Alberto Cavalli, who's the executive director of the Michelangelo Foundation for Creativity and Craftsmanship. Alberto is also a visiting professor at the Creative Academy in Milan, where he teaches Bellezza Italiana. He's one of the world's experts on craftsmanship and beauty. So it's a real honor to have him with us today. Alberto will also talk about an incredible event in Venice, the Homo Faber event, which is beginning on April 10th and will run until the first days of May. If you have an opportunity to attend the event, we highly suggest you organize your schedule to attend. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get in touch with some of the most incredible craftsmanship in the world. So, without further ado, please welcome Alberto Cavalli.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alexander. Thanks to everybody for inviting me here today. I'm pleased and I'm honored to have the opportunity to share with you some highlights about this event, which we are organizing in Venice in the Giorgio Cini Foundation, called Homo Faber. But first of all, a couple of lines about the institution that organizes this event, the Michelangelo Foundation for Creativity and Craftsmanship. It's a private, non-for-profit institution created in Geneva 6 years ago already. Time flies when you have fun, as we say in Italy. Created 6 years ago by two important gentlemen, Mr. Franco Cologni and Mr. Johann Rupert, that you see here on the screen. Mr. Johann Rupert is a South African entrepreneur and a generous supporter of a number of important causes in the world related to culture and to the protection of the natural environment. Franco Cologni is an entrepreneur and an Italian journalist who has been for decades the chairman of Cartier. The two, of course, have known each other for decades, and 6 years ago they have decided to join forces in order to create this institution dedicated to the promotion, protection, and celebration of fine craftsmanship. So what do? We champion fine craftsmanship around the world, and we try to create the right cultural and environmental conditions so that the artisans, those creators of the contemporary forms of beauty, can make their job viable, they can bridge their talent into the future, and they can train a new generation of master craftsmen, of apprentices, that can reinvent today for tomorrow these incredible activities that for centuries have been nourishing the authentic spirit of our own territories. We have a number of projects to accomplish to our mission. We organize a summer school for young artisans that throughout Europe have the opportunity to move from one place to another in order to work with artisans and designers from other countries. We finance remunerated apprenticeships for young talents. We have launched an online tool called the Homo Faber Guide, which we invite you to download. It's a guide that encompasses already more than 1,300 artisans throughout Europe. So wherever you are, there is something incredible to discover around you. And with the Homo Faber Guide, we give you the chance and the opportunity to go and discover who are the most interesting artisans around you. We publish books, magazines, and we organize this event, the Homo Faber event, which after a first edition in 2018 comes back to Venice, and in an incredibly beautiful place, the Fondazione Giorgio Cini. Already in 2018, Homo Faber was organized in this building, which covers almost the entirety of the island of San Giorgio Maggiore in front of Venice. The first edition has been quite successful, I dare say, and already in that first edition we had decided that these incredibly beautiful objects and those talented artisans needed to be under a specific spotlight. both from a metaphorical point of view and from a real point of view. So from a metaphorical point of view, we gave them a huge platform through which demonstrate their talent and their skills. And from a practical point of view, we chose the best spotlights ever, those of Iguzzini, that enabled us to put in value the objects, the gestures, the faces, and the stories. Homo Faber comes back in Venice from April the 10th through May the 1st in a place that I think it's the most photographed place in the world, the Fondazione Giorgio Cini. Because every time that you arrive in Venice and you arrive in Piazza San Marco, right in front of you, you see this church with its belfry made by Palladio that stands in the middle of the lagoon. But not so many people are familiar with what goes inside of the Fondazione Giorgio Cini, which is a famous, it's a world-acknowledged institution, very well known for its commitment to art, to research, to theater, to music. And in the cloisters, the spaces, the rooms of the Fondazione Giorgio Cini, we organized the new edition of Homo Faber that, as you can see, it encompasses 15 exhibitions created by 22 designers and curators. Japan will be the guest of honor, so we will also have 12 of Japan's national living treasures and hundreds of objects and hundreds of artisans and hundreds of stories that are interesting because they are true. And they represent the ethos, the values, and the vision of those incredibly gifted men and women, boys and girls, that every day in their own workshops, in their own atelier, in their own companies, they celebrate the liturgy of doing things well for the sake of giving every day the best you can. These objects, we don't call them things, we call them goods. Like luxury goods. They might not be luxury, but never mind. They are something splendid. They are something special. They are something that comes out of the atelier already with a long story. The Fondazione Giorgio Cini, in all of its spaces, will host these 15 exhibitions imagined by a team of world-acknowledged curators. But we said to ourselves, we are in such a splendid city as Venice that for centuries has been famous for the production of artworks and fine craftsmanship. As you are very well aware of, Venice also suffers from a mass tourism that not always is so respectful with regards to its heritage and to the fragility of the city itself. So we said, why not giving people the chance to go and discover a different Venice? Go and discover Venice the Homo Faber way. So we have launched the Homo Faber in Città. For those of you who are familiar with Milan's Salone del Mobile, you might know what a fuori salone is. It's that incredible array of events and that variety of presentations that take place out of the Fiera and in the city of Milan. Without absolutely wanting to compare ourselves to the Fuori Salone, but we really wanted to give back something to the city of Venice. So we have organized the Homo Faber in Città. Everybody will be invited to meander through the little streets of Venice, across the bridges, looking at the canals, to go and see more than 60 artisanal workshops and collections and galleries. So on top of what you will see inside of Homo Faber, of the San Giorgio Island, you will have the chance of discover a different Venice, profoundly authentic, beautiful, and rich in the human talent that every day makes the difference. When we started to think about the new edition of Homo Faber, we wanted to make something different from 2018. The first edition has been welcomed with a lot of interest. Consider that we were expecting something like 20,000 visitors. We received more than 60,000. So for the second edition, we wanted to capitalize on that and to use the same formula, that is to say, working with curators, Sebastian Erkner, Stefano Micheli, Jean Blanchard, David Cameo, Rinko Kawauchi, Simon Kidston, Judith Clark, Robert Wilson, Zanellato and Bortotto, Tapiwa Mazzinde, Nicolas Lemoigne, Michele De Lucchi, Stefano Boeri, Naoto Fukasawa, A team of incredibly talented curators that, with their point of view, allow us to create a kaleidoscope of exhibitions where objects are pictured, are presented in a context that allows the visitor to understand the value of what you see through the gestures. And on top of celebrating European craftsmanship, we wanted to invite Japan as a guest of honor. In Japan, since 1950, the most important artisans connected to the traditional arts are named national living treasures. And this is a perspective that we wanted to develop. Go and look throughout Europe for human beings so talented and so precious that they are treasures. A treasure is very often hidden, and this is why we need to go and look for it. A treasure always brings value to the territory, and this is why we do believe that our artisans are treasures. And like us, it's a belief, it's a consideration that is shared by all of the institutions that are accompanying us with their patronage in this journey. So the UNESCO, the President of the European Parliament, the Italian Ministry of the Foreign Affairs, the City of Venice, the Betancourt Foundation, the Japan Foundation, the Giorgio Cini Foundation, and the Cologni Foundation. Our curators that you see here on the staircase of the Longhena Library have given the best they could to go and look throughout Europe and Japan for those objects and for those people who have something to say now in an extremely digitalized world. Why do we need craftsmanship? What's the role of artisans in a world that goes fast towards a dematerialization of everything? Well, we do believe that the more digital our lives become, the more analog our dreams remain. And our curators offer their points of view that, multiplied through the spaces of the Fondazione Giorgio Cini, will guide you into an unprecedented celebration and discovery of gestures, techniques, histories, and objects that contribute to create every day the forms of beauty. The lesson that we can learn from Japan on this is of pivotal importance. Imagine what was Japan in 1950. A country devastated after World War II, a country that was defeated by the war and occupied by foreign countries. And in 1950, in that situation, the Japanese parliament decides to approve a law according to which the most important artists and artisans, those that represent the soul of a country, are named living treasures. They decided to protect what was most important for them, their own identity. This is the ethos that we wanted to celebrate about Japan by bringing it also in close connection to its European counterparts. And for all of those who love Japanese culture, there will be plenty of opportunity to dive into the Japanese culture, not only through the exhibitions about which we will talk now, but also by participating in free Ikebana courses. You can, when you buy your ticket, you can subscribe and see if there is still availability, or to assist to a tea ceremony. All the tools necessary for the tea ceremony reflect the wabi-sabi aesthetic of the Japanese crafts and design. Objects that might be unassuming, but where every gesture necessary to make them is so intense that it's like a poetic word. We do believe that craft represents the authentic sustainability, where sustainable does not only mean environmentally friendly, but it also means to give people the chance to express their talent and to give every day the best they can. A world without dreams, is it sustainable? A world without hope, is it sustainable? A world where our own uniqueness and diversity is not acknowledged, is it sustainable? We do believe that craft offers people the opportunity to develop their own voices, and that each of us every day have the chance to make choices. Craftsmanship surrounds us. Fine crafts are connected to our everyday choice. What do you want for your life? Objects of which you know very little, or objects that already represent a story, a territory, a person? Homo Faber will be very much focused on the young generations. We will celebrate, of course, the acknowledged masters, but we have asked our curators to also go and look for the most interesting young voices dedicated to fine craftsmanship. Those boys and girls that are making already a name for themselves by developing a personal take on what contemporary crafts should be. Because in the end, craft is necessary for our own being human. We were born to creatively and consciously transform the creation around us. This is what we are, transformers of materials. And this is what the artisans are, those that are able to make it with talent, creativity, authenticity, and competence. These are the stories that we want to celebrate. And these are the stories that we will be celebrating at Homo Faber, and that the magnificent atmosphere created by Cini will allow us to put very much in light. So very quickly, what will you see when you arrive at the Fondazione Giorgio Cini? In the magnificent Baroque library of the Cini Foundation, we have called David Cameo, past director of the Musée des Arts Déco in Paris, and Frédéric Baudet, porcelain expert, to create the exhibition Porcelain Virtuosity. This library, that normally hosts incredibly precious books, will be transformed into a gallery dedicated to precious pieces of porcelain made by both European and Japanese artists and manufacturers. Porcelain has always been an element that bridges Europe and the Far East, and Japan in particular. Cameo and Baudet have gone to look for some breathtaking pieces made by artists, artisans, and manufacturers that every day choose porcelain to transform a dream into an object. The German designer Sebastian Hackner will represent all of those artisanal techniques that could be used by interior decorators, architects, designers, that should very much encompass, artisanal talent in their own projects, but not always these techniques are so well known. So Sebastian has been inspired by the pattern that you see in front of the San Giorgio Basilica. He has transformed it into a geometric pattern, and he has asked a number of artisans in Europe to create panels with that same pattern in 18 different techniques. Straw marquetry, stained glass, wood carving, wood intarsia. You will enter into a kind of Escher optical illusion with walls covered by fabrics by Rubelli, always woven with the same pattern, and you will discover what the artisans can do for all of those who are called to imagine the interiors of the future. The importance of the cultural heritage is, I would say, pivotal for the new generation of creative people. And we have chosen the example of Zanellato and Bortotto, this creative duo from Venice, that looking at the mosaic floors of the San Marco Basilica in Venice, have imagined how to transform that beauty into some decorative element made by De Castelli, which is a Veneto-based company specialized in metal projects. So, the cultural heritage should always be an inspiration for young, talented, creative people. But inspiring also means being able to move from the literal quotation into something more specific and more refined, as this project, Tracing Venice, will show. But as I said, Japan will be the guest of honor. And in the Fondazione Cini's most important room, the Cenacolo Palladiano, so the refectory created by the architect Palladio, with the incredibly beautiful painting by Veronese, the Kana Wedding, we have invited Naoto Fukasawa. I'm sure you're all familiar with this legendary Japanese designer and architect. Working with Tokugo Uchida, Fukasawa has selected 12 national living treasures, and for each of these 12 national living treasures, one for each of the categories, so the Bizen ceramic, Urushi lacquering, Yuzen kimono dyeing, etc., they have selected one or more objects that will be displayed in this room on this rock garden. Very pure, very refined. These objects look quite unassuming, quite simple. But as I was saying, that simplicity is the fruit of the long and painstaking process to take away what is unnecessary and to just focus on what is truly indispensable: beauty. The atelier of these National Living Treasures will also be presented, but allow me to give you a little anticipation. The Cana wedding, so the painting that you see in the refectory, will reveal its beauty thanks to an important project carried out by Cini and co-sponsored by Van Cleef & Arpels. A new lighting system will be put in place to valorize this work by Paolo Veronese that represents Venice at its best. So once again, Cini gives light and value to a very important part of our heritage. The atelier and the gestures of the National Living Treasures that had been selected by Naoto Fukasawa will be presented in the Cypress Cloister, which will be transformed in the most beautiful photo gallery in the world, thanks to the images shot by Rinko Kawauchi. The award-winning Japanese photographer has been admitted and has been allowed to visit this workshop. Hey, visiting the workshop of a National Living Treasures is extremely difficult. So we are offering people the chance to discover these places through the poetic, inspiring photos of Kawauchi-san. Right in front of the refectory, there will be a space dedicated to British and French craftsmen, with real people at work, real craftsmen selected by the Institut National des Métiers d'Art, the French institution that takes care of the most acknowledged French craftsmen, and the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust, which is a British charitable institution dedicated to the promotion and protection of craft. So, French artisans and British artisans that are already transmitting their know-how will work in front of the visitors to reveal crafts that might sound out of time, but they are also contemporary. Italian living treasures will be present in the room curated by Fondazione Cologni, called Italy and Japan the Marvelous Liaison. Not the dangerous liaison, like the movie with Glenn Close, but the Marvelous Liaison, because the ties between Italy and Japan have always been quite fertile and generative. So the Cologni Foundation has selected 18 Italian artisans, whose works have been inspired by the Japanese culture. So you will see the glass vases by Lino Tagliapietra inspired by the Mount Fuji, or creations by the coral maker Platimiro Fiorenza inspired by the Japanese sea, and so on and so forth. A close dialogue between Italian craftsmanship and Japanese culture. The Michelangelo Foundation is a Swiss foundation, so we also have the Swiss National Living Treasures, and in particular the artisans of Sainte-Croix, which is a city very famous for the production of automata. And we have asked the ECAL, the world acknowledged school of design, to have their students work with artisans of Sainte-Croix to create 5 new automata. Attention, when I say automata, I mean nothing electronic. This is all fine mechanics. And we will be inviting people to see what these artisans and these young designers can do to bring machines to life. In the Cypress Cloister, we are opening for the first time after decades a room called Magne Carte, curated by Michele De Lucchi. It will be dedicated to paper and calligraphy, with artisans at work by Montblanc, the German maison where specialized in writing instruments. So its artisans will show how to craft the nibs of the fountain pen, and with a participative laboratory of origami. So everybody will be called to create the little origami bird that will be then hung on a huge structure. In this room you will see incredible pieces made in paper, from the evening gowns by Isabelle de Boschgrave, that you will really wonder if it's paper or not, to the wallpaper made by the San Patrignano atelier boys and girls, to the incredibly delicate but also powerful objects made in paper by a variety of artists and artisans. We have also partnered with Venini. Venini is a Venetian maison based in Murano and specialized in precious glass blowing. For the first time, we have asked 10 flower designers among the most acknowledged in the world to design not only a bouquet, but also a vase. We asked them, why don't you also imagine which kind of vessel should contain your beautiful flower creation? So Venini will present a collection of 10 new vases imagined by these talented flower designers in a room imagined by Sylvain Roca, a French scenographer and architect, which has conceived a super immersive experience revolving around the elements that create glass, so air, fire, water, and earth. You will have the impression of entering into a furnace and to discover a nature which is blossoming like talent should always be. The pièce de résistance, as we say, is a tapestry room which has been given in terms of curatorship to Jean Blanchard and to Stefano Boeri. Stefano Boeri, the chairman of Triennale Milano, the world acknowledged urban planner and architect, and Jean Blanchard, one of the most important gallery owners in Europe, have created a room called Next of Europe. So they have selected around 150, 180 objects crafted by European artisans that are already transmitting their know-how. Here we'll always have 6 artisans at work in this beautiful Wunderkammer that will present, well, the best that European craftsmen are able to make. We will have a nice garden where it will be possible to have a coffee with the furniture by Emu. And in front of that, we will also have a very special tea room. This is an exhibition in its own right, with the curator, Tapiwa Matsinde, a renowned and very talented curator from the UK. We have asked Tapiwa to put together an exhibition that was also functional. So she has selected pieces by artisans from all over the world, Italy, Europe, but also Africa and South America. And the good news is you will be able to touch everything, to, you know, sit down on the sofas and the chairs and go through a magazine and eat there and sip a cup of tea, a very special tea made for Homo Faber by Mariage Frères. Because we will see artisanal objects everywhere, but we also need to feel them, touch them, live them. And in the tea room, you will have the chance to do this. In the Fondazione Cini, there is also a beautiful disaffected swimming pool, which the American legendary visual artist Robert Wilson will transform into a stage for his own tribute to Japan and to the No Theatre, and for his tribute to Madama Butterfly. Robert Wilson has been the director of a very famous Madama Butterfly. So the sculptural costumes made by Frida Parmigiani and the decorative elements imagined for that production will be staged with the lighting and the sculptures, so it will be really a discovery of Robert Wilson's visionary world. And we are also opening another new room that had been closed for decades. The ex-school of arts and crafts connected to the sea has been assigned to Judith Clark. Judith, the Australian curator and exhibition maker, had the task to create an exhibition into which 15 important maisons, Alaia, Lange e Söhne, Aquaflor, Buccellati, Cartier, Ciso, Dolce & Gabbana, Hermès, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Les Mariés, which is part of Chanel, Serapian, Piaget, Vacheron Constantin with the Musée du Louvre, Van Cleef & Arpels, Hughes Net Abordé with the Princess Fund. Well, all of these maisons will be there with an artisan at work that will reveal the secrets of their know-how. But on top of this, there will be objects very, very seldom exposed from the archives of these maisons that will represent the cultural roots of why these maisons still nowadays invest so much in the human talent in crafts. Imagine a petal that you see painted on the kimono by Ciso, and then you find again in a gem encrusted by Cartier, and then in a engraving by Lange. What is decoration for the world of luxury? Is it a useless embellishment? No. You will discover that decoration, in this case, represents the expression of an identity that gives value to what luxury should always stand for, that is to say, culture and beauty. The Maison Panerai is bringing its fabulous sailing boat Eileen, built in 1936 and perfectly restored by the Del Carlo shipyard in Viareggio. It will be docked at the island of San Giorgio, and the public will have the chance to go on it and see it and admire it. There will be a special lounge furbished by Visionaire that we give thanks to. And there will be, of course, people, our artisans, young ones, acknowledged ones, artisans that have learned how to take their lives into their hand and to express every day the best they can. Artisans whose talents need to be celebrated, acknowledged, and bridged safely into the future. And we can do this also thanks to those who believe in our value, of which, and all out of the collaborators that work with us to transform Homo Faber into a success, let me give a special thanks to Iguzzini that since the beginning, 4 years ago, have shared our mission and have understood that giving the right light to an object made by an artisan means giving the right light to the life, the story, and the talent of that person for whom craft is a philosophy of life. Marsilio Art is our general contractor. Alessandro Pedron and his team are our general architects. And Venice is our stage. But it's not only a stage, because it's a place where we carry out a number of activities. So we are sponsors of the Art Biennale that will open on April the 23rd. We are sponsors of Palazzo Grimani, of which you see here an incredibly beautiful photo. We have been accompanying the young talents of the La Fenice Theatre for the past 4 years. We team up with the San Marco Basilica, with the Pietà. Well, we love Venice, and we want to see Venice blooming again with talent and with opportunities. And we are sure you will join us in this wish. Homo Faber is very big, so our guests, our visitors will need to sip a Bellini, sip a cup of tea, have a coffee, and we have partnered with important players like Genuino, Alma, Cipriani, in order to offer the best service, also in terms of food and beverage. All of this will be narrated and presented by the young ambassadors, 100 talented girls and boys from all over Europe that we have selected from the best schools of arts and crafts, and that will come to make the exhibition come alive. They represent the generations of makers of the future. They represent a community, and they will have the chance of getting in touch directly with the most beautiful objects and with the most important master craftsmen. We do believe that Homo Faber will offer everybody the chance to acknowledge how important making with taste, with love, and with competence is. This is why we have selected some artisans or companies that help people express their potential with crafts, like the San Patrignano Community, the Makers Unite, and La Fabrique Nomade. This is Homo Faber. And as Alexander was saying, we are waiting for you there from April the 10th through May the 1st. And you might wonder, and of course tickets are already for sale on the website homofaber.com. Well, you might wonder why we do this. We are a Swiss institution, we are a Swiss foundation. We could take care of a number of other things, but we have decided to invest on this. Why? Because we believe that, as the Chinese philosopher Francois Cheng said, in these times of unprecedented turmoil and misery, to talk about beauty is necessary. Because to talk about beauty means to understand what stands at the opposite of beauty, which is not evil, but it's something worse than that. It's the loss of sense. Homo Faber is an invitation to move from simply looking at things to understanding meanings, from seeing something to understanding its value. Because otherwise, if every object is just the same, If every human being is just the same, then where's the space for unicity? Homo Faber is here to teach us how to acknowledge beauty, even when normally we would have difficulties in seeing it. You know, the French philosopher Simone Weil came here. I am in Recanati now. Simone Weil went to Umbria and to Marche because she wanted to see the places of San Francesco. And she said, St. Francis used to write, "Oh, we had a beautiful dinner on this stone in the middle of the wood." And Simone Weil said, "Beautiful? I mean, I beg your pardon? Imagine St. Francis 800 years ago having dinner by night, freezing cold, in a wood, on a stone, eating the remains of somebody else's dinner. How can that be beautiful? How do we judge what is beautiful? How do we understand what is beautiful?" What I tell my students is that they should consider, their starting point should be this painting here by Piero della Francesca that represents the resurrection of Christ. Fine. Christ is resurrecting. He's wearing this red draped dress, red, the color of victory. But what's happening here? Look at the soldiers. This one looks up, but his eyes are closed. He can't see anything. These two don't even realize what's going on. This one even covers his eyes as if to say, "Please no." Something spectacular is happening around us. Are we able to see it? Every day, the artisans perform incredible things in front of us. Are we conscious about that? Or are we just closing our eyes because to imagine a different way of living could be too dangerous? The more you are free to express yourself, the more you can learn how to take away what is unnecessary and to just focus on what is indispensable, as we were saying. Beauty. This is what the artisans do. They don't throw away anything, but they carve. They take out what is unnecessary in order to give you something that is resplendent with the fruit of their work, which touches your heart. This is what beauty should be. Bernini represented it perfectly with this golden arrow that the cherub has and that he's throwing towards the chest, towards the heart of Saint Teresa. This is what beauty should be, a golden arrow that touches your heart and changes you. This is what we want to make with Homo Faber. Invite people to change their mind and to change their habits and to change the way they look at craftsmanship, at human talent, and at the uniqueness of what is necessary to be doing. Because it's not, it's not information that is lacking. There's plenty of information. What we are missing is a point of view. This is why we have called 15 curators to develop our point of view. Because the risk is that we live in this situation that you see in the painting at my shoulders. This is a painting by Pieter Bruegel the Elder, painted in the early 16th century, and it represents Jesus Christ going to the Calvary mountain to be crucified. Where is Jesus Christ? Can you see him? No. It takes at least 15 seconds to understand where he is. And even when you see the cross, you don't see him. So the most important character in this painting, you cannot see it. Everything is important in this painting, eh? The Virgin Mary, the guards of the high priest, the meal, but everything is important. But there is one thing that is fundamental. Are you able to see it? Everything is important in our lives, but there is something that needs to be looked at with particular attention. And this is why Homo Faber is an invitation to everybody to discover again their capability of looking at things. Like Plato, the philosopher, said, the search for beauty demands to change perspective and awaken that capability to look beyond appearance that we all have, but that very often we don't use. We should be like the youngest of the three philosophers painted by Giorgione. The oldest one represents science. The one in the middle represents wisdom. The youngest one represents all of us. We possess the instruments, you see, to understand what will come, to give a shape to it. And even if in front of us there is this dark cave, look, it occupies even 1/3 of the painting, but still the young man looks at it and he's not scared, because he knows that he possesses the way to give a shape of beauty to whatever will come. This is the way we should consider ourselves, and we should look at ourselves. But do we really possess the instruments? If you go to Rome, to the Farnesina, you will see this beautiful frescoed ceiling by Peruzzi. And you will see that there are the zodiac signs and the constellations and the planets, but there's something strange. Well, first of all, you arrive and say, oh, there is Raphael, there is Il Trionfo di Galatea. Oh, wow, we must be in a, good place. So you look up again to the ceiling of Peruzzi, and you see, yes, there are the zodiac signs. Then there are the constellations. And then there are the planets. But, I mean, if you know a little bit about astrology, you know that every zodiac sign has its own planet. So the planet of Leo is the sun. The planet of whatever. And here they are misplaced. So the sun is in Sagittarius, the moon is in Gemini. So you look at it and say, Peruzzi. Yes, it's a nice decoration, but I mean, he just, painted something nice. He did not. Sun in Sagittarius, moon in Gemini, 1st of December of the year when Agostino Chigi was born. This is not a simple zodiac. This represents the position of the sun and the planets the day when the owner of this villa, Agostino Chigi, was born. So Peruzzi is not stupid. We are stupid when we look at things without understanding their meaning. Every day we should have the courage to choose for ourselves those things that give a meaning to our days. Like in Beauty and the Beast, you remember the story. This rich merchant loses everything in a shipwreck. And he condemns his family to misery, his 3 daughters. Then one day, somebody tells him, oh wait, one of your ship has survived, so it's coming to the port, go and look. So the merchant leaves, and he asks his 3 daughters, so what do you want? If I can bring you a gift, what do you want? The older sister say, oh, I want a new dress. The one in the middle say, oh, can I have a jewel? But Belle, the little one, says, I just want a rose. A rose in winter. She had the courage to ask for something that made her happy and changed forever her life and the life of her family. We must have the chance to ask for what makes us happy. Otherwise, we run the risk of having a beautiful dress, a beautiful jewel, but what we really wanted was a rose. Rose represents the spirit of spring. This very famous painting by Botticelli that represents spring. Yes, but where is spring? Spring is not one person. Spring is the spirit that imbues all of these figures here. So that when we are touched by this spirit that renovates us every day, we feel invited to be transformed in the best shape we can assume. Because allowing ourselves to bloom means expressing ourselves with truth, with verity. And in Latin, the word truth, veritas, and the word spring, ver, have the same root. What makes you bloom is what is true for you. You know, it's complicated to understand that we need this kind of nourishment, because in our countries, famine is not really a problem anymore. But there is another famine. There is another starvation, much more dangerous. Do we nourish ourselves with beauty every day? Do we nourish our spirit? Because if you do not nourish your body, you die. But what about your spirit? If you do not nourish your soul, your spirit and your heart, you die. And this is the starvation that we are facing. André Gide wrote a book about the earthly nourishment. What is it that nourishes us every day? Because otherwise, it's like eating a chewing gum, you know. You feel a flavor, but there is no nourishment in that. And there is no way that you can express yourself, choose your roles, and develop the talents you were supposed to have. I am talking to you from Recanati, in a beautiful place, in a beautiful country, and we are surrounded by beauty. And we tend to think that this beauty will last forever. But it will not. Beauty is fragile. It needs us the same way we need it. And when we talk about beauty, you know, everybody will tell you, oh, you know, Dostoevsky has written that beauty will save the world. Well, let me tell you, this is not true. Dostoevsky never wrote that beauty will save the world. In his book, The Idiot, this is a question. But tell us, is it true that you once wrote that beauty will save the world? Question mark. Is it true that beauty will save the world? Should it be the world that will save beauty? Because otherwise, if we give the wrong answer, we are giving free reins to the prophecy that was made by William Shakespeare in the first act of the Macbeth. William Shakespeare was an Elizabethan playwright, very famous for his Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet, and he also wrote a tragedy called Macbeth about a man who wanted to become king of Scotland. And to do this, he kills, he betrays, etc., etc. Now, in the first act of the Macbeth, Mr. Macbeth is wandering through the moor with his friend Banquo. And then he sees three witches, three creatures from hell that are making kind of, you know, sorceries around their cauldron. And they are muttering things, words. Macbeth wants to hear what they're saying, so he gets close, and the three witches are saying, fair is foul and foul is fair. What is beautiful is ugly, and what is ugly is beautiful. What we should consider beautiful, because it's made with love, with care, with passion, is considered ugly because it's not trending on Twitter, people don't understand, it's too expensive, it's out of time. And what we should be considering ugly, because it has no originality and no authenticity, is considered beautiful, because we are asked to think like that, and we have to conform ourselves to the homologation towards which we're going. Do we want to give the palm of victory to the three witches of Macbeth? In the Bible, there is a very special book called the Song of Solomon, the Song of Songs. It's a very strange book because it's a love story. A boy and a girl looking for one another, wanting to make love with one another, and they say beautiful words to each other. Sicut lilium inter spinas, ita amica mea inter filias. Et sicut malum inter linea silvarum, ita dilectus meus inter filios. Like the lily among the brambles is my girl among the girls, and like the apple trees among the trees of the forest is my boy among the boys. There are many trees in the forest, but then there is the apple tree, and under its perfumed flowers I want to go and rest. There are thorns and brambles around us. Hey, but then there is the lily, what is beautiful, what is different, will always make you fall in love. And love and the truth are the only forces that will always make us free. Free to create, free to imagine, free to bloom wherever we are planted. Thank you.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you very much, Alberto, for that journey through culture, through beauty, through craftsmanship. Thank you, everybody, for participating on YouTube, on Instagram. This was really a special moment. For those of you who want to re-watch these incredible words and words of wisdom and vision from Alberto, check into the Giorgio Cini YouTube channel next week. Thanks again, Alberto. Thanks to everybody. Forza Homo Faber. We'll see you in Venice. Good evening.